Okay, we're going to talk about solutions. So we're going to go ahead and put our title is 2.2, Understanding Solutions. And we're going to start by discussing the three main types of solutions. So we have three major kinds. We have a suspension, we have a solution, and we have a colloid. Okay, a suspension is where the particles are easily seen and can be separated by filtration or they settle out. So a suspension might be pepper and water or particles of dirt in water. So this is a test tube and we'll just put some water in it. So water is our main substance here. And inside of the water we might have some small little pepper flakes. And you can see them. They eventually will float on the top or separate to the bottom. And if you needed to get them out, we could easily filter them out with a filter. So in a suspension, the particles are easily seen. That's a C. This right here is a CLES. And they settle or filter out. Then we're going to go to a solution. And a solution is where the particles, it's more of a transparent solution. It's transparent. You can see through it because the particles are a lot smaller. They're well mixed. They're very hard to separate. So we're going to do, a solution is actually, we're going to talk a lot about solution. And it's going to take this this part right here, yes, that is a lightsaber, is going to be the top half of your page. Okay, and then solutions is going to kind of go down to the bottom of your page. So as I go, you can continue solutions on down, but we're going to start at the top half and then I'm going to finish it in a minute. So solutions are well mixed, like, so we have a test tube and we put fruit punch Kool-Aid in it. Okay, so the particles are well mixed. And they are too small to be seen. And they are hard to separate. Now this is going to keep going in a minute. We're going to divide this up into two parts, but I'm going to do that on the next page. So we're going to stop with the solution right there for just a minute. And we're going to move on to colloid. And a colloid is a lot like fog. where the particles are easily seen. They're big enough to see, but they don't settle. They just kind of stay floating midair. So a colloid, we have a test tube. Good examples of colloids are fog, jello, right down to even a marshmallow. We'd have just a little marshmallow in our little test tube. Mayonnaise is a colloid. Milk is a colloid. Okay, so those are all examples of colloids. And they are small undissolved particles. They scatter light and they don't settle out. But they're big enough to see. So they are undissolved. And then underneath colloid, we're going to draw a picture of fog. So this is the top half of your page. I'm going to change the page to do the bottom half. Okay, so now we're going to move underneath this stuff. And we're going to finish colloid really quickly. So a colloid, a good example of colloid is a fog, because you can actually see the particles of fog. And they don't settle out. The only reason why the fog goes away is because eventually it burns off. So if I'm driving down the road, and this is a car, and I put my headlights on, the lights are actually going to, especially if I have my high beams off, they're going to get scattered by the particles of fog, and it makes it very difficult to see. So now we're going to move back over to solution, where we left off with solution. And there's actually two types. There's a solvent, or two parts to a solution, and there's the solute. Now the solvent is the dissolver. And if you think about the word solvent and dissolve, it's kind of got the same word in it. So if you look, you've got S-O-L-V-E, S-O-L-V-E. So the solvent is the actual dissolver. And we know that water is the universal solvent. And so in most cases, not all, but in a lot of cases, the solvent is going to be water. And it's the thing that's present in the largest quantity. And then you have the solute. These are things that are present in the smallest quantity. And a great example of a solute is sugar or salt or Kool-Aid powder. And I remember it because I see the U in solute, and that reminds me of sugar. I see the V in solvent, and that's half of a W, so that reminds me of water. So water is the solvent. So if you see the W, water is the solvent, and sugar is the solute. Now, when these two combine and come together, we can't see the particles. You can't see the Kool-Aid particles anymore. You might see the food coloring from the Kool-Aid that makes it the purple or the pinkish color, but you can't really see the sugar particles. So if you were to dissolve sugar in water, you wouldn't be able to see the sugar. And the reason why we can't do that is because if we have water molecules, when you dump the sugar in, the water molecules are polar and the sugar is polar, and they have that attraction and they kind of stick to each other. So the water surrounds all the little particles of solute. So they spread because and that's all for that side of the page. Now, if we turn the page over, we're just going to do a couple more on the back. And we're going to talk about a saturated solution. And if we think about a saturated diaper, the word saturated means full. So if I'm making a solution and I have little water molecules, which is a universal dissolver, it's not the only dissolver, and I pour Kool-Aid in it, the solution is saturated. If you think of it this way, the easiest way to think of it, not necessarily this is happening to this extreme, but the easiest way to think of it is that every water molecule is attached to a sugar molecule. So there's no more water molecules left to attach to a sugar molecule. And so every sugar molecule is attached to a water molecule. Okay? So every sugar molecule has a water molecule, and we call that saturated. And the word saturated means full. So that's a saturated solution. And then on the second half of the page, we're going to do the effects of solutes. So this is the top half of the back of your page, and I'm going to do the bottom half of the back of your page. I'm going to draw a quick box. Okay, so these are the effects of solutes. When we're talking about the freezing point, if we add a solute like sugar or salt, we're going to add salt because it lowers the freezing point. So if we're making ice cream, we're going to add salt in order to lower the freezing point. And the reason why this happens is as the water molecules are trying to combine to make crystalline structures, the salt particles get in the way. And they kind of act like a third wheel and keep the water molecules from making ice formations. We also add salt to raise the boiling point of water. Now remember, the freezing point of water is 0 degrees Celsius, and this is going to make it less than 0 degrees. So it has to be less than 0 degrees in order for the ice formation to happen. It has to be less than degrees. So we're going to add salt to boiling water too. Because it raises the boiling point. And so if we have our water molecules, as the water molecules try and evaporate, they can't do so if they have salt particles with them. So they have to shake off the salt particles and leave them behind in order to evaporate. And so this, it clings to the water, and so this causes the water to have to get extra hot. So that's 2. It clings to water. And that's all we have for solutions.